The alien warship descended through Earth's atmosphere like a metallic storm cloud, its hull gleaming with an otherworldly blue-black sheen that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Commander Sarah Chen watched from the bridge of the USS Defiance as the massive vessel settled into a hovering position 3 kilometers above downtown San Francisco. The ship was enormous, easily the size of 5 city blocks with angular surfaces that hurt to look at directly. "Status report," Sarah commanded, her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. This was humanity's first contact with an alien species, and it wasn't going according to any of the protocols they'd spent decades preparing. "The vessel isn't responding to any communication attempts." "Ma'am," reported Lieutenant Torres from the communication station. "We've tried every frequency, every language protocol we have. They're just silent," Sarah nodded grimly. 3 days ago, the ship had appeared at the edge of the solar system, moving at impossible speeds that defied everything humanity knew about physics. It had ignored all attempts at contact, all diplomatic overtures, and had simply continued its relentless approach toward Earth. Now it hung over one of humanity's most populated cities, like a sword of Damocles. "What about the energy readings?" Sarah asked. "That's the strange part, Commander," replied Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the ship's science officer. "The energy signatures we're detecting are off the charts, but they're not configured for weapons. At least not any weapons we understand. It's more like they're powering some kind of massive scanning array." The bridge fell silent except for the soft humming of computers and life support systems. Through the view screen they could see the alien vessel's underside, which was covered in a complex pattern of what looked like crystalline structures. Occasionally these structures would pulse with a soft amber light that seemed to ripple across the hull in waves. "Ma'am," Torres spoke up again, his voice tense. "I'm receiving reports from San Francisco. The civilian population is in full evacuation mode, but it's chaos down there. The highways are completely gridlocked and people are abandoning their vehicles and trying to flee on foot." Sarah closed her eyes briefly. She had family in San Francisco. Her sister Maya worked as a pediatric nurse at UCSF Medical Center, and she had refused to evacuate, insisting that she couldn't abandon her young patients. The thought of Maya and thousands of other innocent people trapped beneath that alien monstrosity made Sarah's chest tighten. "Any word from the Pentagon?" she asked. "Secretary of Defense Morrison is en route to NORAD. President Williams has been moved to a secure location. The UN Security Council is in emergency session, but there's not much they can do except watch and wait like the rest of us." The waiting was the hardest part. Sarah had served in the Navy for 15 years, had commanded ships through storms and combat situations, but she'd never felt as helpless as she did right now. Humanity's most advanced warship, equipped with railguns and nuclear torpedoes, felt like a toy compared to the alien vessel. Even if they wanted to attack, their weapons would likely be as effective as throwing pebbles at a mountain. "Commander," Dr. Tanaka called out, his voice filled with excitement and alarm. "I'm detecting a new energy signature from the alien ship. Something's happening." On the main screen, the crystalline structures on the ship's underside began to glow brighter, pulsing in a complex rhythm that seemed almost musical. The amber light grew stronger and stronger until it was painful to look at directly. "Is it a weapon?" Sarah demanded. "I don't think so," Tanaka replied, frantically working at his console. "The energy pattern is all wrong for a weapon system. It's more like they're trying to communicate, but not with radio waves or any electromagnetic spectrum we're familiar with. This is something entirely different." Suddenly, every screen on the bridge flickered and a sound filled the air that was unlike anything any of them had ever heard. It wasn't quite music and wasn't quite language, but somehow it conveyed meaning. Images began to flash across their displays. Star systems, planets, and what looked like other alien species. But these weren't random images. There was a pattern, a story being told. The images showed worlds dying, their surfaces scarred and lifeless. They showed massive ships, similar to the one hovering over San Francisco but darker, more menacing, sweeping across galaxies and leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. And then the images showed something else. Worlds fighting back, species uniting against a common threat, and among them, a small blue planet that looked remarkably like Earth. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Torres. "They're showing us a war, a galactic war." The images continued, becoming more specific. They showed Earth as it was now, but also Earth as it could become. Cities in flames, oceans boiling, the planet's surface cracked and broken. But there were other images too, images of hope. They showed humans fighting alongside the aliens, standing together against the dark ships that brought only death. It's a warning, Sarah realized, her voice barely above a whisper. They're not here to invade us. They're here to warn us about something else, something worse. The transmission abruptly ended, and the crystalline structures on the alien ship's hull returned to their previous dim glow. The bridge of the Defiance was silent for a long moment as everyone tried to process what they had just witnessed. "Commander," Torres said finally, "I'm receiving a priority message from UCSF Medical Center. It's from your sister." Sarah's heart stopped. "Put it through." Maya's voice crackled through the communication system, stressed but determined. "Sarah, I know you're up there somewhere. I need you to know that we're not abandoning the children. The hospital is staying operational. Whatever happens, we're not leaving them behind." The message cut off, leaving Sarah staring at the alien ship that hung like a dark omen over her sister's city. Whatever was coming, whatever threat these aliens were warning them about, humanity would have to face it. And they would face it together, or not at all. "All stations maintain current position," Sarah ordered, "and open a channel to Fleet Command. Tell them we need to establish formal diplomatic contact with our visitors. It seems we're about to become part of something much bigger than ourselves." The secure conference room beneath NORAD was filled with tension thick enough to cut with a knife. President Williams sat at the head of the polished oak table, her usually perfect composure showing cracks of strain. Around the table sat the most powerful people on Earth: Secretary of Defense Morrison, Joint Chiefs Chairman General Patterson, CIA Director Brooks, and Dr. Elena Vasquez, the world's leading xenolinguist who had been hastily flown in from MIT. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," President Williams said, her voice carefully controlled. "These aliens didn't come here to conquer us. They came here to recruit us for a galactic war against something called the Devourers?" Dr. Vasquez nodded, her tablet displaying the complex translation algorithms she'd been working on for the past 18 hours. "That's the best interpretation we can make from their transmissions, Madam President. The linguistic patterns suggest urgency, alliance, and mutual survival. The species calls themselves the Kethvar, which roughly translates to those who remember the light. They've been fighting this war for what appears to be thousands of years." General Patterson leaned forward, his weathered face skeptical. "With all due respect, Dr. Vasquez, how can we trust anything these aliens are telling us? For all we know, this could be an elaborate deception. They show us scary images of these devourers, get us to lower our guard, and then they're the ones who attack." "I understand your skepticism, General," Dr. Vasquez replied, "but the mathematical constants embedded in their transmissions, the star charts they've shared, the astronomical data, it all checks out. They know things about our galaxy that we're only just beginning to discover, and more importantly, they're sharing strategic information that they wouldn't need to if they intended to conquer us." CIA Director Brooks cleared his throat. "What exactly are these devourers? What makes them such a threat that an obviously advanced alien species needs our help?" Dr. Vasquez pulled up a new display on the room's main screen. The images were disturbing. Dark, organic-looking ships that seemed to writhe and pulse with malevolent life. "According to the Kethvar transmissions, the Devourers aren't just another alien species. They're something much worse. They consume entire worlds, literally draining them of all life energy. Every planet they touch becomes a dead husk, and they use that consumed energy to create more of themselves." "How many worlds have they destroyed?" President Williams asked quietly. "Based on the star charts and timeline data, we estimate over 3,000 inhabited worlds in the past millennium alone. Entire civilizations, billions of beings simply gone." The room fell silent. Secretary Morrison was the first to speak. "Why us? Why is Earth important enough for them to risk revealing themselves? Surely there are more advanced civilizations that would be better allies." Dr. Vasquez smiled for the first time since entering the room. "That's actually the remarkable part, Mr. Secretary. According to the Kethvar, humans possess something unique. They call it the fire that burns without consuming. From what I can decipher, it refers to our capacity for self-sacrifice, our ability to fight beyond logical limits when protecting others." General Patterson snorted. "That's it. Our stubbornness." "Not stubbornness, General. Hope. The Kethvar have been studying us for decades, watching our wars, our disasters, our responses to impossible odds. They've observed how human beings will run into burning buildings to save strangers, how soldiers will throw themselves on grenades to protect their comrades, how doctors and nurses will risk their lives to treat patients during pandemics. They've never encountered a species quite like us. President Williams stood and walked to the window that looked out over the Colorado mountains. And these devourers are coming here. The Kethvar long-range sensors detected a devourer fleet 3 weeks ago. They estimate it will reach our solar system in approximately 6 months. The fleet contains what they term a harvest ship, a vessel capable of draining an entire planet in a matter of days. Defense Secretary Morrison's face had gone pale. 6 months? That's not enough time to evacuate the planet even if we had somewhere to go. Which is why the Kethvar are here, Dr. Vasquez continued. They're offering us an alliance. Their technology, combined with human tactical innovation and our particular psychological traits, might be enough to stop the devourers here and now. If we can defeat them at Earth, it could turn the tide of the entire galactic war. And if we refuse? The president asked. Then Earth dies, and the devourers gain the resources to continue their expansion toward the galactic core, where the last free civilizations are making their stand. General Patterson leaned back in his chair, processing the enormity of what they were discussing. What exactly are they offering? What kind of technology? Energy weapons beyond our current understanding, ship designs that can travel faster than light, and something they call neural interface systems that would allow human commanders to directly control their vessels, as if they were extensions of their own bodies. But most importantly, they're offering to upgrade our military personnel. Upgrade how? Dr. Vasquez hesitated. This is where it gets complicated. The Kethvar have developed a process that enhances a being's natural abilities: strength, speed, reflexes, intelligence. But it's not just physical. It amplifies what they call warrior spirit. For humans, this means enhancing our capacity for tactical thinking under pressure, our ability to remain calm in impossible situations, and our willingness to sacrifice for others. Super soldiers, Morrison said flatly. More than that, the Kethvar have tried this process with their own people and with members of other allied species. It's effective, but something about human psychology makes the enhancement exponentially more powerful. They believe a single enhanced human squad could be worth 1,000 of their own warriors. President Williams turned back to the table. Have they demonstrated any of this technology? That's the thing, Madam President. They're waiting for our answer first. The Kethvar operate on what they call trust bonds. They won't share their most advanced technology until we commit to the alliance. They've seen too many species try to use their gifts for internal conflicts rather than against the devourers. So we're supposed to take their word for all of this? Not entirely. They've agreed to allow a small group of volunteers to undergo preliminary enhancement and training aboard their ship. If we're satisfied with the results, then we proceed with full alliance protocols. General Patterson suddenly straightened. Who are they asking for? These volunteers? Dr. Vasquez checked her notes. They've specifically requested military personnel with combat experience, particularly those with records of exceptional bravery or tactical innovation. They mentioned that they've been monitoring our Special Forces units, the Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Marine Force Recon, Air Force Pararescue. They want our absolute best. The president returned to her seat, her decision weighing heavily on her shoulders. How long do we have to decide? The Kethvar ship will remain in position for 72 hours. After that, they'll assume we've declined their offer and will move on to seek other allies. Madam President, they've made it clear that Earth is their last hope. Every other species they've approached has either been destroyed by the devourers or has refused the alliance out of fear. President Williams looked around the table at her advisors, seeing her own fears and uncertainties reflected in their faces. If we say yes, we're committing humanity to a galactic war. If we say no, we're condemning our planet to destruction. Yes, ma'am, that's the situation. The president closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of her children, her grandchildren, and the billions of people counting on her to make the right choice. When she opened them again, her resolve was steel. General Patterson, I want a list of our top Special Forces volunteers within 12 hours. Dr. Vasquez, prepare detailed briefings for the enhancement process. Mr. Morrison, begin preliminary plans for integrating alien technology into our defense systems. She paused, looking at each person in the room. Ladies and gentlemen, It appears humanity is about to take its first steps onto a much larger stage. God help us all. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rivera had seen combat in 3 different theaters and had led his SEAL team through operations that most people would consider impossible. But standing in the cramped briefing room aboard the USS Defiance, looking at the holographic display of an alien mothership, he felt like a rookie all over again. "Let me get this straight," said Sergeant First Class Diana Walsh, her Irish accent thick with disbelief. "These blue-skinned space elves want to turn us into super soldiers to fight cosmic zombies that eat planets?" Captain James Park, the team's demolitions expert, snorted. "When you put it like that, Walsh, it sounds completely reasonable." Marcus held up a hand for silence. His team consisted of 8 of the Navy's most elite operators, each handpicked for this unprecedented mission. They'd all volunteered, though none of them had fully understood what they were volunteering for until this moment. Dr. Vasquez stood at the front of the room, her expression serious. "I know this is a lot to process, but the enhancement process is based on advanced nanotechnology. Microscopic machines that integrate with your nervous system and muscular structure. According to the Kethvar, the process is reversible, but the changes are significant." "Define significant," asked Chief Petty Officer Sarah Kim, the team's sniper. "Increased strength by a factor of 5, reaction times improved by roughly 300%, enhanced healing that allows recovery from injuries that would normally be fatal, and improved cognitive processing that allows you to think and react faster under stress." Petty Officer Miguel Santos whistled low. "And the catch? The enhancement amplifies not just your physical abilities, but your psychological traits as well. For humans, this means your protective instincts become much stronger. Your willingness to sacrifice for others increases, and your ability to remain calm under pressure is enhanced. But it also means that if you have any psychological instabilities, they could be amplified as well." Marcus looked around at his team. These were people he'd trust with his life, people who'd already proven themselves in the most extreme circumstances. But the idea of letting aliens rewire their brains and bodies was sobering. "What about our families?" asked Petty Officer Lisa Chen, the team's medic. "If we do this, if we become something different, what happens to our relationships with normal people?" Dr. Vasquez's expression softened slightly. "The Kethvar have assured us that the enhanced individuals retain their memories, their personalities, their emotional connections. You'll still be you, just more than you were before." "And if we say no?" Marcus asked. "Then in 6 months Earth becomes a dead rock floating in space, and none of our families matter anyway." The room fell silent. Through the viewport they could see the Kethvar ship hovering above San Francisco, its alien architecture catching the sunlight in strange ways. Marcus thought about his daughter Sophia, only 8 years old, who still believed her daddy was just away on another training exercise. "Commander," Dr. Vasquez continued, "there's something else you should know. The Kethvar have been studying human military records, particularly Special Forces operations. They've identified certain individuals who they believe will be especially compatible with the enhancement process, such as your team specifically, your unit's success rate in impossible situations, your cohesion under pressure, your history of completing missions despite overwhelming odds. According to their analysis, you represent the ideal candidates for enhancement." Sergeant Walsh leaned forward. "What makes them so sure we won't turn into monsters?" "Because they've studied human nature extensively. They've observed that the individuals most likely to abuse enhanced abilities are those who already show tendencies toward selfishness or cruelty, military personnel who consistently risk their lives for others, who follow codes of honor even in the darkest circumstances. These are the people who become stronger and more protective when enhanced, not more dangerous." Marcus stood and walked to the viewport, looking down at the city below. Even from this height, he could see the streams of refugees fleeing San Francisco. Entire families abandoning everything they owned because an alien ship hung over their heads. "Dr. Vasquez, how do we know this isn't some elaborate form of alien mind control? How do we know they're not just trying to turn us into their puppets?" "We don't," she admitted. "But the alternative is certain extinction. At least this way, we're choosing to fight." Captain Park spoke up. "What's the process actually like? Are we talking about surgery, injections, what?" "According to the briefing materials, you'll be placed in what they call an enhancement chamber for approximately 6 hours. The nanomachines will integrate with your system gradually, and you'll be conscious throughout the process. The Kethvar want you to be aware of every change, to maintain control over your own transformation. And how long before we know if it worked? The changes are immediate but continue developing for several weeks. Full integration takes about a month, during which time you'll be training aboard the Kethvar ship, learning to use their technology and tactics. Marcus turned back to his team. I want each of you to think carefully about this. If we do this, there's no going back. We become the first humans to be permanently altered by alien technology. We become something new. Sir, Sergeant Walsh said quietly, with respect, I've been thinking about it ever since they told us about the Planet Eaters. My nephew lives in San Francisco. He's 3 years old. If there's a chance this can save him, I'm in. One by one, the rest of the team nodded their agreement. These were people who'd already dedicated their lives to protecting others. The scale might be different, but the mission was the same. Dr. Vasquez, Marcus said, what's our timeline? The Kethvar want to begin the enhancement process within 24 hours. They've prepared individual chambers for each team member, and their medical specialists are standing by. Will we be able to communicate with our families before we go? Yes, but you won't be able to tell them the full truth. The official story is that you're participating in a classified training exercise that will last several months. Marcus nodded. It wasn't the first time he'd had to lie to Sophia about where he was going or what he was doing. But it might be the last time she knew him as simply her father, rather than something more and perhaps something terrifying. All right, people, he said to his team. You have 18 hours to handle your personal affairs. Send messages to your families, write letters, do whatever you need to do, because in 18 hours we're going to become something that's never existed before. What's that, sir? Asked Petty Officer Santos. Marcus looked back out at the alien ship, thinking about the images they'd been shown of dead worlds and cosmic horrors. The first human beings designed specifically to fight monsters in the dark between the stars. As his team filed out to make their preparations, Marcus remained at the viewport. Somewhere below, his sister Maya was still at UCSF Medical Center, refusing to abandon her young patients even as the city emptied around her. Soon he might have the power to protect not just her, but everyone on the planet. The question was whether he'd still be human enough to remember why that mattered. The interior of the Kethvar ship was nothing like Marcus had expected. Instead of cold metal corridors and sterile surfaces, the walls seemed to be made of a living crystalline material that pulsed gently with warm amber light. The air itself felt different, cleaner somehow, charged with an energy that made his skin tingle. His guide was a Kethvar named Veltar, whose appearance was both beautiful and unsettling. The alien stood nearly 7 feet tall with skin that shifted between blue and silver depending on the angle of light. 4 arms moved with fluid grace and large, multifaceted eyes seemed to see everything at once. Most disturbing were the small, crystalline growths along Veltar's temples and neck, visible signs of the same enhancement process that Marcus and his team were about to undergo. Your apprehension is natural, Veltar said, his voice carrying an odd harmonic quality that made it seem like multiple people speaking in perfect unison. I underwent the enhancement process myself 200 of your years ago. I remember the fear. What were you before? Marcus asked as they walked through corridors that seemed to bend and shift around them. A scholar. I studied the mathematics of stellar formation, calculated the life cycles of distant suns. I had never held a weapon, never taken a life. Veltar paused at a junction where the corridor opened into a vast chamber filled with strange machinery. But when the Devourers came to my homeworld, scholarship became insufficient. Marcus could see other members of his team being led through different areas of the ship. Through a transparent wall, he watched as Dr. Chen spoke with a group of Kethvar medical specialists, her expression shifting between fascination and terror as they explained the enhancement process in detail. How many worlds have you lost? Marcus asked. 17, Veltar replied without hesitation. 17 worlds I have watched die while we searched for allies strong enough to help us turn the tide. Each time we arrived too late, or the species we approached was too divided, too afraid, or too proud to accept our help. They entered a chamber dominated by what looked like a massive glass pod filled with swirling, luminescent fluid. Banks of alien computers surrounded it, displaying readouts and symbols that hurt Marcus's head to look at directly. This is your enhancement chamber, Veltar explained. The process itself is not painful, but it is intense. You will feel every change as it occurs. Your body will become stronger, faster, more resilient. Your mind will process information more quickly, see patterns that were previously invisible to you. But most importantly, your spirit will be enhanced. My spirit? What your species calls courage, determination, the willingness to sacrifice for others. The enhancement does not create these qualities. It amplifies what already exists within you. This is why not all species are suitable for our process. Some become monsters. Others become cowards with enhanced abilities to run away. Marcus approached the chamber, running his hand along its smooth surface. And humans? Humans become something remarkable. In our long war against the Devourers, we have learned that victory requires more than superior technology or tactics. It requires the willingness to do what others cannot, to stand firm when all hope seems lost, to sacrifice everything for those who cannot protect themselves. Humans possess this quality in abundance. Through another transparent wall, Marcus could see Captain Park being fitted with what appeared to be alien body armor that seemed to flow like liquid before hardening into a perfect fit. The expression on Park's face was one of wonder mixed with determination. Veltar, what happens if this doesn't work? What if the enhancement process fails? Or if we're not strong enough to defeat the Devourers? The alien's large eyes fixed on Marcus with an intensity that was almost physical. Then my people will retreat to the galactic core and make our final stand around the last free worlds. We will fight until every Kethvar is dead, and when we fall, the Devourers will consume everything we have ever built or dreamed. The universe will become a cold, lifeless void populated only by those who feast on death. Marcus nodded slowly. No pressure then. Actually, Veltar said. And Marcus could swear he detected something like amusement in the alien's voice. That is precisely what this is. Pressure. The weight of every living being in the galaxy resting on the shoulders of 8 human soldiers. According to our psychological profiles, this should make your species fight harder, not surrender. You've got that right, Marcus muttered, thinking of his daughter, his sister, and the billions of people on Earth who had no idea their fate was being decided in an alien ship floating above their heads. Commander Rivera, a new voice spoke, and Marcus turned to see Dr. Chen entering the chamber, followed by a group of Kethvar medical specialists. The preliminary scans are complete. Physically, you're all ideal candidates for enhancement, but there's something the Kethvar want to explain about the psychological aspects. One of the medical specialists, smaller than Veltar but with more pronounced crystalline growths, stepped forward. Human neural patterns are unique among the species we have encountered. Most sentient beings think in linear progressions, problem analysis, solution. Humans think in what you might call narrative loops. You create stories, assign meaning to events, and your actions are driven by these internal narratives. What does that mean for the enhancement? Marcus asked. It means that when enhanced, humans don't just become stronger soldiers, they become champions. Heroes. The enhancement process amplifies not just your physical capabilities, but your psychological need to protect others, to be the protagonists in stories of courage and sacrifice. Dr. Chen frowned. Are you saying the process will change our personalities? Not change, illuminate. The qualities that made you volunteer for this mission, that drove you to become elite soldiers in the first place, will become the dominant aspects of your psychology. You will become the best possible versions of yourselves. Marcus looked around the chamber, at the alien technology that would soon remake him at a cellular level, at the beings who were trusting humanity's finest with their last hope for survival. When do we start? Now, Veltar said simply. Your team members are already beginning their enhancement procedures. The process is synchronized so that you all emerge at the same time, with identical capabilities and shared psychological bonds that will make you function as a perfect unit. Marcus began removing his uniform, folding each piece carefully. He thought about the last message he'd sent to Sophia, telling her that Daddy was going away for a while but would come back stronger than ever. He hoped that would turn out to be true in ways she could never imagine. One more question, he said as he prepared to enter the enhancement chamber. What do we call ourselves after this? We won't really be Navy SEALs anymore. Veltar's eyes seemed to brighten, and the crystalline growths along his neck pulsed with increased light. According to our analysis of human mythology and warrior traditions, you will be guardians. The first of a new kind of human, designed not to conquer or destroy, but to stand watch over those who cannot protect themselves. Marcus stepped into the chamber, feeling the warm, strange fluid rise around his body. As the enhancement process began, his last clear thought was of Earth, small and blue and beautiful, hanging in the darkness of space with 8 billion people counting on him and his team to keep the monsters at bay. The universe was about to learn what happened when humans truly had something worth fighting for. Marcus opened his eyes and immediately knew that everything had changed. The world around him seemed sharper, more vivid, as if he'd been looking through fog his entire life and someone had suddenly wiped away the glass. Every detail of the enhancement chamber was crystal clear. He could see individual molecules of the strange fluid he was floating in, could feel each pulse of energy from the crystalline walls. But more than his physical senses had changed. He could feel his team. Not just their presence, but their emotional states, their thoughts, their intentions. It was as if they were all connected by invisible threads that hummed with shared purpose. "Status report," he said automatically, and was startled by the sound of his own voice. It carried a harmonic quality similar to the Kethvar, rich with overtones that seemed to resonate through the chamber. "All systems green, sir," came Sergeant Walsh's voice, and Marcus could sense her amazement at her own transformation. "I can hear everything. The ship's engines, conversations happening 3 decks away, even the heartbeats of the Kethvar crew members." Marcus stepped out of the chamber and looked down at his hands. They appeared normal at first glance, but when he concentrated, he could see faint lines of light running beneath his skin, the nano-machine network that had integrated with his nervous system. His body felt incredibly strong, as if he could run for days without tiring, lift tremendous weights without strain. "Commander," Dr. Chen's voice carried a note of clinical fascination. "I'm monitoring my own vital signs automatically. Heart rate, blood pressure, adrenaline levels, even neurotransmitter production. It's like having a complete medical readout running in the background of my consciousness." The chamber doors opened, and Veltar entered, followed by several other Kethvar. Marcus immediately noticed that he could read their emotional states now, not through facial expressions or body language, but through some kind of direct empathic perception. The aliens were excited, hopeful, but also deeply concerned. "The enhancement process has succeeded beyond our projections," Veltar announced. "Your integration rates are nearly 100%, compared to an average of 60% for our own people. But more importantly, the psychological enhancements are exactly what we hoped for." Marcus looked around at his team. They all appeared physically unchanged except for their eyes, which now held flecks of the same crystalline material that marked enhanced Kethvar. But the change in their bearing was unmistakable. They moved with perfect coordination, stood with absolute confidence, and radiated a protective energy that was almost tangible. "What's next?" Marcus asked. "Training," replied a new voice. And Marcus turned to see another Kethvar enter the chamber. This one was different. Larger than the others, with more extensive crystalline growths and an aura of command that was immediately recognizable. "I am War Leader Zethkar. I will teach you to use your new abilities in combat." "War Leader?" Captain Park asked, and Marcus could sense his teammates' instant tactical assessment of the alien. "You fought the Devourers directly?" "For 300 years. I have commanded fleets in 17 major engagements, led boarding actions against Devourer ships, and watched entire civilizations die because we lacked the strength to save them." Zethkar's voice carried a weight of experience that was sobering. "But that changes now. Follow me." They moved through the ship's corridors, and Marcus marveled at how naturally his enhanced team moved together. Without conscious coordination, they maintained perfect spacing, watched each other's blind spots, and communicated through subtle gestures and shared awareness. The enhancement had turned them into something more than a squad. They were becoming a single, multifaceted organism dedicated to war. The training chamber they entered was enormous, easily the size of a football stadium, with walls that shifted and reconfigured themselves as they watched. Equipment racks emerged from the floor, displaying weapons that looked like works of art, energy rifles that hummed with contained power, armor that seemed to flow like liquid metal before hardening into perfect protection. "Your enhanced physiology allows you to interface directly with our technology," Zethkar explained as he handed Marcus a weapon that immediately felt like a natural extension of his arm. "The neural connections created by the nanomachines allow you to control our equipment through thought alone." Marcus raised the weapon and instantly understood how it worked. Power settings, targeting systems, ammunition types, all the information flowed directly into his consciousness. More importantly, he could feel the weapon's readiness, its eagerness to be used in righteous battle. "This is incredible," Petty Officer Santos breathed as he donned a suit of the flowing armor. The material conformed perfectly to his body, and Marcus could sense through their shared connection that Santos felt invulnerable, protected by technology that could deflect energy blasts and kinetic impacts. "Now we test your capabilities," Zethkar said, and the chamber around them transformed into a battlefield simulation. Enemy targets appeared, holographic representations of Devourer soldiers that moved with terrifying speed and aggression. What happened next defied everything Marcus had thought he knew about combat. His team moved like a force of nature, flowing around obstacles with inhuman grace, their enhanced reflexes allowing them to dodge attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. Their weapons fired with perfect accuracy, and their coordination was so seamless that they seemed to anticipate each other's actions before they happened. "Remarkable," Veltar observed from the viewing gallery. "Enhanced Kethavar warriors would have taken significant casualties in that simulation. Your team eliminated all targets without a single injury." But Marcus barely heard the praise. Through his enhanced senses, he had felt something during the combat simulation that chilled him to the bone. The holographic Devourers hadn't just been images. They had been recreated with perfect accuracy based on real encounters. And what he had sensed from them was pure cosmic hunger. These weren't just aggressive aliens or even evil beings in any conventional sense. They were emptiness given form, void that consumed everything it touched. "When do they arrive?" he asked quietly. Zethkar's expression grew grim. "Our long-range sensors detect the Devourer fleet at the edge of your solar system. They are moving more slowly than usual, taking time to consume the outer planet's resources. We estimate 4 months before they reach Earth." 4 months to prepare 8 billion people for something like that? Sergeant Walsh said, her voice tight with controlled fear. "No," Marcus said, understanding flooding through his enhanced consciousness. 4 months to make sure they never get the chance to try." Zethkar nodded approvingly. "That is the plan. The Devourer fleet contains one harvest ship, a vessel capable of draining an entire planet, but it is also their command center, their strategic hub. If we can destroy it, the rest of the fleet becomes disorganized, vulnerable." "A suicide mission," Chief Kim observed matter-of-factly. "Perhaps, but your enhancement gives you capabilities that even we do not fully understand. Human psychology, enhanced to its ultimate expression, may be exactly what is needed to succeed where we have failed." Marcus looked at his team, seeing them not as the soldiers they had been, but as the guardians they had become. Each face reflected the same determination, the same willingness to sacrifice everything for the protection of others. The enhancement hadn't made them different people. It had made them the most human they had ever been. "What's the next phase of training?" he asked. "Integration with our fleet," Zethkar replied. "You will learn to command our ships, to fight in space combat, to lead combined forces of human and Kethvar warriors. But first you must make a choice." "What choice?" "The enhancement process can be reversed, but only within the next 72 hours. After that, the changes become permanent. You will never again be entirely human as your species defines the term. Your families, your friends, your former lives, all of that becomes part of your past." Marcus felt his team's emotional response through their shared connection. Not fear, not regret, but a deep, abiding sadness for what they were leaving behind, mixed with an unshakable resolve to protect what they loved most. "Sir," Dr. Chen spoke up, "I've been analyzing our psychological profiles since the enhancement. We're not losing our humanity. We're becoming the most human we could possibly be. Everything we were, everything we cared about, it's all still here. It's just stronger now." Marcus nodded, feeling the truth of her words. His love for his daughter hadn't diminished. It had expanded to encompass every child on Earth, every innocent being throughout the galaxy. His dedication to his team hadn't changed. It had grown to include an entire species worth of soldiers who would fight beside them. "Zethkar," he said finally, "show us everything we need to know. Show us how to save our world." The war leader's crystalline growths pulsed with what Marcus now recognized as deep satisfaction. "Then let us begin your real education. Guardians of Earth, let us teach you to wage war among the stars." As the training chamber reconfigured itself for their next lesson, Marcus felt a moment of perfect clarity. They were no longer just 8 enhanced humans. They were the hope of 2 species, the bridge between human determination and alien technology. They were something new in the universe, forged specifically to stand against the darkness that consumed worlds. The Devourers were coming, but they would find Earth defended by something they had never encountered before. Humans who had been given the POW, the command bridge of the Kethvar dreadnought Eternal Vigil, hummed with barely contained energy as Marcus and his team took their positions at the neural interface stations. 3 months of intensive training had transformed them from enhanced soldiers into something unprecedented in galactic warfare, humans who could command alien warships as extensions of their own bodies. Through the massive viewports, the combined fleet was visible in all its terrible glory. 200 Kethvar vessels of various classes hung in formation around Earth, their crystalline hulls gleaming in the light of Sol. But mixed among them were the first human-built ships, incorporating Kethvar technology, sleek destroyers and frigates that moved with an aggressiveness that purely Kethvar designs lacked. Fleet status report, Marcus commanded, his consciousness flowing through the ship's neural network to touch every system, every weapon, every crew member. All the vessels report ready for combat, came the immediate response from the fleet's AI. But this wasn't just any artificial intelligence, it was a hybrid system that combined Kethvar quantum processing with human intuitive algorithms. The result was something that thought like a human but processed information at superhuman speeds. Admiral Sarah Chen, Marcus's sister, appeared on the main communication screen from her flagship, the USS Defiance. The past 3 months had changed her too, though not through alien enhancement. The weight of commanding humanity's first interstellar fleet had hardened her features, giving her eyes a steely determination that Marcus recognized from their childhood, when she'd protected him from neighborhood bullies. Marcus, our outer pickets are reporting gravitational anomalies at the edge of the system. The Devourers are beginning their approach. Through his enhanced senses, Marcus could feel the tension radiating from every human and Kethvar in the fleet. This was it. The moment that would determine whether Earth lived or died, whether the galactic war continued or ended here in humanity's home system. How many? Marcus asked, though part of him already knew the answer through the quantum entanglement communication system that linked all enhanced humans across the fleet. Sensors are having trouble getting exact counts, Admiral Chen replied. The Devourer ships seem to bend space around themselves, making them difficult to track. But preliminary estimates suggest over 500 vessels, including 3 harvest ships. War leader Zethkar, standing at his command station, made a sound that Marcus had learned was the Kethvar equivalent of cursing. 3 harvest ships? We have never faced more than 1 in a single engagement. They must consider Earth a particularly valuable prize. Marcus felt his team's shared consciousness flicker with grim amusement. Or they've learned to take humans seriously. Through the fleet communication network, Marcus could sense the emotional states of every enhanced human in the combined force. There were now nearly 1,000 of them, volunteers from every military on Earth who had undergone the enhancement process. Each one burned with the same protective fury that drove Marcus and his original team. All enhanced personnel. This is Guardian Prime, Marcus announced, using the title the Kethvar had given him. You know what's at stake. Every child on Earth, every family, every hope for humanity's future depends on what we do in the next few hours. We are no longer just human, and we are no longer just soldiers. We are Earth's guardians, and we will not fail. The response that flowed back through the network was wordless but profound, a wave of absolute determination that made the quantum processors hum with power. Contact, came the urgent report from the sensor operators. Devourer fleet dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the system's edge. The main display showed what no human had ever seen before, a Devourer fleet in its full, terrifying glory. The ships were organic in appearance, like massive tumors of dark matter that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved in patterns that hurt to watch, flowing through space like living things rather than constructed vessels. My God, whispered Captain Park from his position aboard the Kethvar cruiser New Harmony. They're beautiful and horrible at the same time. Marcus understood what he meant. The Devourer ships had an alien aesthetic that was genuinely awe-inspiring, but it was the beauty of a cancer cell or a predator's smile, perfect in its design for destruction. Fleet, Prepare for engagement, Marcus commanded. Remember, our primary target is the lead harvest ship. Everything else is secondary. Guardian Prime, Admiral Chen's voice carried a note of concern. Intelligence reports suggest the harvest ships are protected by some kind of energy field that our weapons can't penetrate. How do we plan to... Her question was cut off as the Devourer fleet suddenly accelerated, moving at speeds that defied physics. They weren't just faster than light. They were moving through dimensions that human science didn't have names for. They're trying to bypass our main fleet, Zethkar observed. Classic Devourer tactics: avoid direct confrontation and head straight for the planet. Not this time, Marcus said quietly. Through his neural link with the Eternal Vigil, he began executing a maneuver that no Kethvar commander had ever attempted. The massive dreadnought began to fold space around itself, creating a gravitational barrier that the Devourer fleet couldn't simply bypass. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The lead Devourer vessels slammed into the space distortion and were forced back into normal dimensional space, their exotic matter hulls rippling with damage from the impact. Impossible, came a transmission from one of the Kethvar commanders. How did you create a dimensional barrier? Human intuition, Marcus replied, already moving to execute the next phase of his plan. We don't always understand how we do things, we just do what feels right. The Devourer fleet, now forced into a direct confrontation, began to deploy weapons that made the combined Earth-Kethvar fleet's arsenal look primitive by comparison. Beams of pure entropy lanced through space, capable of unmating atoms and reducing entire starships to their component particles. All ships evasive maneuvers, Marcus commanded, and watched in satisfaction as the human-designed vessels began dodging with an aggressiveness that purely Kethvar ships couldn't match. Enhanced personnel, initiate combat protocols. What happened next was something that War Leader Zethkar would later describe as the most beautiful and terrifying thing he had ever witnessed. The enhanced humans throughout the fleet began to synchronize their consciousness, creating a collective awareness that allowed them to coordinate their movements with impossible precision. Ships that should have collided instead danced around each other in perfect harmony. Weapons that should have missed their targets instead struck with surgical precision. The entire human contingent of the fleet began to move as a single organism, guided by the protective instincts that the enhancement process had amplified to cosmic proportions. Guardian Prime, came an urgent transmission from Sergeant Walsh, now commanding a squadron of enhanced Marines aboard Kethvar assault craft. We're reading massive energy buildup from the lead harvest ship. They're preparing to drain Earth's biosphere from this distance. Marcus felt his enhanced consciousness expand, touching the quantum fields that surrounded the enemy vessel. What he sensed there made his blood run cold. The harvest ship wasn't just preparing to drain Earth's life energy. It was preparing to consume the planet's very essence, leaving behind nothing but a hollow shell of dead matter. All enhanced personnel, Marcus announced, his voice carrying across every ship in the fleet. We're going to do something that has never been attempted before. We're going to use our collective consciousness to interface directly with the harvest ship's control systems. Sir, Dr. Chen's voice carried a note of alarm. The psychological feedback from connecting with a Devourer mind could be lethal. We don't know what it might do to our enhanced neural networks. Marcus looked out at the Earth hanging in space behind them, blue and beautiful and utterly defenseless. Somewhere down there, his daughter Sophia was probably sleeping peacefully, trusting that her father would keep her safe. Millions of other children were doing the same, their dreams protected by people they would never meet who had volunteered to become something more than human, for their sake. Then we'll find out together, Marcus said, and began the process that would either save Earth or destroy every enhanced human in the fleet. All Guardians, link consciousness and prepare for neural assault. We're going to show these cosmic predators what happens when they threaten something that humans are willing to die to protect, or to match their protective instincts. And that, Marcus realized, might just be enough to turn the tide of a galactic war. The moment Marcus initiated the neural link with the harvest ship, reality exploded into chaos. The enhanced consciousness of nearly 1,000 human guardians suddenly made contact with something that was antithetical to everything life represented. The Devourer collective mind was a void of hunger so vast and ancient that it made the space between galaxies seem cozy by comparison. Marcus felt his team's minds recoil in horror as they touched the edges of that cosmic emptiness. This wasn't just an alien intelligence, it was the absence of intelligence, the negation of everything that made existence meaningful. The Devourers didn't just consume matter and energy, they consumed hope, love, the very concept of a future worth living. Hold the link, Marcus commanded through gritted teeth, his enhanced physiology straining against the psychological assault of pure entropy. Remember why we're here. Through their shared consciousness, he projected images of Earth, children playing in parks, families gathering for dinner, lovers walking hand in hand under star-filled skies. The simple, beautiful moments that made life worth protecting flooded through the neural network, creating a buffer of human warmth against the cosmic cold. The effect on the Devourer collective was immediate and unprecedented. For the first time in millions of years, the ancient hunger encountered something it couldn't simply consume. Human love, amplified by alien technology and focused through enhanced determination, proved to be something the Devourers had never faced before, an emotion so powerful it could exist independently of the matter that created it. It's working. Dr. Chen gasped from her position on the new Harmony. The harvest ship's energy readings are fluctuating. Their drain beam is destabilizing, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Marcus could feel the enhanced humans throughout the fleet beginning to burn out from the strain of maintaining mental contact with cosmic-level entities. Several had already collapsed, their consciousness retreating so deeply into protective catatonia that it might take years to bring them back. Guardian Prime, War Leader Zethkar's voice cut through the mental chaos. The other harvest ships are moving to compensate. If we can't disable all three simultaneously, they'll drain Earth while we're focused on the first one. Marcus felt a moment of despair so profound it threatened to break the neural link entirely. Even with all their enhancements, even with the combined might of the Earth-Kethvar fleet, they weren't strong enough to face three harvest ships at once. The mathematics were simple and brutal. They could save maybe a third of Earth's biosphere before the other Devourers completed their work. Then Sergeant Walsh's voice cut through his despair like a laser through darkness. Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures from Earth's surface. Every nuclear reactor on the planet just went to full output simultaneously. On the tactical display, Marcus watched in amazement as Earth began to glow with unprecedented energy output. Every power plant, every military installation, every enhanced human who had remained on the planet to coordinate the defense was pouring everything they had into a single, desperate gambit. Guardian Prime came a transmission from Earth, and Marcus was shocked to recognize the voice of President Williams. This is Overwatch Control. We're implementing Protocol Final Dawn. Every enhanced human on Earth is linking their consciousness with yours. Marcus felt his awareness suddenly expand beyond anything he'd thought possible. Not just the 1,000 Guardians in the fleet, but 10,000 enhanced humans on Earth's surface, all of them connecting their minds in a network that spanned from the planet's core to the edge of the solar system. The neural feedback was incredible. Marcus could sense his daughter Sophia sleeping in her bed in San Francisco, could feel the dreams of millions of children around the world, could touch the hopes and fears of every human being who had ever looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. All Guardians, Marcus announced, his voice carrying the weight of an entire species' determination. We're going to do something that has never been done before. We're going to teach the Devourers what it means to be human. The combined human consciousness, amplified by Kethvar technology and focused through protective love that spanned continents, reached out and touched all three harvest ships simultaneously. But instead of trying to fight the cosmic hunger directly, they did something the Devourers had never experienced in their millions of years of existence. They showed them what they were destroying. Through the neural link, the Devourer collective suddenly experienced human emotion from the inside. They felt a mother's love for her child, a soldier's willingness to die for strangers, an artist's need to create beauty in the face of meaninglessness. They experienced hope, compassion, the stubborn human refusal to surrender even when all logic demanded it. The effect was catastrophic for beings that existed as pure negation. The harvest ships began to convulse, their organic hulls rippling as internal systems tried to process experiences that were fundamentally incompatible with their nature. The cosmic hunger that had driven them for eons suddenly found itself force-fed emotions it could neither consume nor understand. The harvest ships are destabilizing, Admiral Chen reported. Her voice filled with wonder. Their quantum coherence is breaking down. They're retreating. Marcus watched through the fleet's sensors as the three massive vessels began to withdraw, their support fleets following in confused disarray. But he could sense that this wasn't a tactical retreat. It was something far more significant. The Devourer collective mind was reeling from its first encounter with emotions it couldn't simply devour. Guardian Prime. Veltar's voice carried a tone of awe that Marcus had never heard from the normally composed alien. Our long-range sensors are detecting similar retreats throughout the galaxy. Every Devourer fleet is withdrawing to their home territory. The war is over. The words seemed impossible, but Marcus could feel their truth through the quantum network that linked every enhanced human. Across thousands of light years, Devourer fleets that had been in the process of consuming entire star systems were suddenly pulling back, their ancient hunger disrupted by the psychological feedback from the battle at Earth. How is that possible? Marcus asked, though part of him already understood. The Devourer collective consciousness is linked across galactic distances, Sethkar explained. When your neural assault touched their command ships here, it propagated through their entire network. Every Devourer in the galaxy just experienced human emotion simultaneously. Marcus began to laugh, a sound that carried through the neural network and infected every enhanced human in the fleet. It wasn't the laughter of relief or victory. It was the distinctly human response to cosmic absurdity. They had won a galactic war not through superior firepower or brilliant tactics, but by forcing their enemies to feel love. Guardian Prime. President Williams' voice came through the communication array. What's the status of the enhanced personnel? How many did we lose? Marcus performed a quick check through the network, touching each consciousness to verify its integrity. Remarkably, Madam President, we didn't lose anyone. The shared psychological load meant that no single individual had to bear the full weight of contact with the Devourers. We're all changed by the experience, but we're all still here. And the Devourers? Marcus reached out with his enhanced senses, probing the retreating alien fleet. What he found was disturbing and hopeful in equal measure. They're not destroyed, but they're different. The exposure to human emotion has created something like curiosity in their collective mind. They're withdrawing to process what they've learned. Will they return? I don't think so, at least not as conquerors. For the first time in their existence, they've encountered something more interesting than simple consumption. They're going to want to understand what they experienced here. As the enhanced human network gradually disconnected, returning each individual to their normal consciousness, Marcus felt a profound sense of completion. They had become something new, no longer entirely human but not fully alien either. They were bridges between species, guardians of more than just Earth. Guardian Prime, Veltar approached Marcus on the bridge of the Eternal Vigil. What will your people do now? The galaxy is free of the Devourer threat, but there are still many worlds that need protection, many species that could benefit from the alliance we've forged. Marcus looked out at Earth, hanging peaceful and blue in space, then at the mixed fleet of human and Kethvar vessels that surrounded it. His daughter was safe. His sister had commanded humanity's first interstellar victory, and the universe had become a place where love could triumph over cosmic horror. We'll do what humans have always done, he said, feeling the certainty of his words resonate through the quantum network that still connected him to his fellow guardians. We'll protect those who can't protect themselves. We'll explore the unknown, and we'll make sure that no child, human or alien, ever has to fear monsters in the dark again. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not through conquest, but through the simple, stubborn refusal to let evil triumph over innocence. And that, Marcus thought, was perhaps the most human victory of all.